Our friend,
Hello.
our friend Mike just put the closer code in the chat, and he is doing a free thing. So I'm going to copy it in case you wanted to see what we're looking at here, Renee. Lenora cannot type today. Oh, bananas.
And we're live anyway.
Great. All of
Even if
YouTube
we're
knows that I'm not typing well today.
bada bing. A little bit late today. It's been a busy day, but here we are, Triple T, number 164.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Still blows my mind when I say those numbers. Hello, everybody. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know everything. Guaranteed. I just have a unique way of asking lots of questions and helping people find the answers to the questions and things they're up against. Oh, man. Yes, it has been a day. I was so looking forward to this. I had a huge conference today that I attended and had to get up nice and early. So my brain made sure that I didn't miss it by waking me up every half hour, starting at about 2 a.m. So other than that, we're here, we're live, we're running, we're up, and we got some amazing familiar faces, and one that I have been looking forward to seeing for quite a while. Yay! Yes, I feel better now. For all the people live on YouTube, hi, Mom. Yep, my mom tunes in every week and keeps track of us, and she adores you guys big time. So one of these days, we're going to get her on here with us.
Well, again, she has made several appearances on Triple T, so we'll have her get on again.
And for the rest of you watching on YouTube, please do all the YouTube stuff. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave comments. I know I say this every week, but please, if you get anything worthwhile out of this, please hit the like button and leave comments, and smooches. Somebody's happy here, so cool. What else we got here? Yes, back.
Looks like you got a haircut and maybe some new glasses. You're looking
Oh
pretty
yeah,
good.
no, I got them all cut. Bada bing, dad joke of the day. So we got all that. I do have a new, well, not new, but I've got a website, thetswb.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com, still under construction. And yes, we're changing stuff all the time. So please check it out. Check out and test all the links for us, please. I've had a few people go, well, I clicked on this and it wasn't working at the time. I said, well, go back a little bit and then let me know. And so I appreciate the feedback. Just like that, yes, my brain. You're going to see some pauses tonight. Also would like to trying to get some testimonials for the website. So if anybody is willing to toss a testimonial that we could put on there, I would appreciate it. And you get to decide how much information about yourself is on there. If you just want initials or whatever, that's up to you, and we will respect that. I also offer a free, that's right, no charge to you, free 30-minute consultation. That is your opportunity to reach out and chit chat with me for 30 minutes to go over whatever challenges you may be up against. And one of my promises to you is if I am a fit, I will let you know. But if I am not a fit, I will also let you know, and I will do my best to find the right person to get you the change that you are looking for, because you deserve that. And what do I do? What do I do? Oh, I've been asked that a lot today at the conference. So what do you do? And if you guys, for those of you that really know me, you can imagine how challenging it is sometimes for me to answer that. So it gets interesting. But for this environment here, I have the privilege of helping people with depression, anxiety, phobias, grief. I work with athletes from beginner all the way up to pro level. Recently had somebody reach out. They wanted some help in being able to do interviews and to get a job. Yes, we teach that as well. I offer corporate coaching and a bunch of other stuff. So if you're wondering if there's a fit, call me up. Yes, we'll go from there. Time to keep up with the tradition I started last year. Time to introduce the tie. And this week it is one of my all-time favorites. I have gotten more compliments on this tie. And I was so afraid to let anybody touch it or let it out of my eye. If I was traveling with it, I had to know where it was, because if I ever lost this thing, I would have. And somebody was amazing enough to find a backup tie for me, so I feel much better now. But this is my most popular ever poo tie. Yeah.
It's so
Love,
cute.
That's so
love the ties
cute.
with a little poo on them.
Oh,
And my tie clip, see if we can get that to focus in there or not. Of course not. Welcome to, anyhow, tree monkeys, see no evil, speak no evil, don't get into evil, or something like that. You guys know how it goes. So, the way I like to start this out is for those of you that are new or watching the recording for the very first time, we're going to run 2 hours, and I try my best to make sure I stay to that. First hour is I've got some topics. Usually I've got 3, but with what was going on today, I've got 2, and I didn't even have time to post them in the chat. And then after my first hour is done, second hour is open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can ask a question, and I let all the people on the call answer first, because I still like to learn. And I do learn a lot in that second hour because of all of you. So thank you for that. Another thing I like to do is start off with who's got something good to share? Give me something good. Any ahas, epiphanies, cool stuff from the week? Anybody? Hey, sometimes no news is good news.
I didn't know if Michael was going to share about his awesome new thing that he started to share about in the chat when we started.
And they probably heard a little bit of it. So yes, Michael, please share with us and make sure you let them know how to get a hold of you and find all that out.
muchas gracias. I just launched a funnel to help people with their sales skills. It's called theclosercode.net, and it is amazing. And it opens up some opportunities to earn income, increase your sales, and get reoccurring income. So very excited. Thank you guys. I appreciate y'all.
Okay, super cool. And I saw, Mark, you were going to share something?
Just as I got my new computer up and running, got Zoom installed, and you can actually see my face, instead of the blur.
We love seeing
Had a friend-
humans.
had a friend come over and help me out with that and a few other things. But again, I'm used to be so tech savvy, building my own machines and stuff, and now I need help, usually from a 12-year-old to get stuff, you know. Uh, but yeah, a buddy of mine came over and we had a good visit, and he helped me out quite a bit. So his name is Nick Auerbach, and he's does the same thing I am. He's a therapist here in Plymouth. So just like the coach of the Boston Celtics, Auerbach, but no relation. But yeah, he was quite helpful. He's my IT guy, and that's it. So,
Good to have peeps.
oh yeah.
People people think that I'm super tech savvy and all the above, and I'm still, I'm very good at YouTube, but I'm also really good at asking for help, which is a superpower. I'm going to admit that. And here's a little something. Disclaimer quick. If this is your first time around Planet TJ, you're going to notice that my mind will chase squirrels like crazy. And in my environment, my squirrels have squirrels who know squirrels. So sometimes I will chase a squirrel and forget where I was. Where was I? There was something I was going to share with you, and then the squirrel ran away. Oh, squirrel came back. For those of you out there that are hesitant to ask for help, one of the things that really helped me out a while back, because I used to have the same infliction, we're going to call it, and somebody pointed out to me, have you ever had somebody ask you for help and you got to help them? I go, yeah, that's what I do. And they said, how do you feel when you get to help people? So it's great, that's why I do it. They said, then don't rob other people of the same happiness of being able to help you. Don't rob people the same happiness of being able to help you. Ask for help. They enjoy it just as much as you do. So, I don't have a problem asking for help now. I don't have a problem asking for directions. All the above. Because I know how good it makes me feel when I can help people out. So there. Now the squirrel can take a rest. Anybody else got anything they want to throw in before we get rolling? Awesome. My friend Elijah from way across the pond.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we doing? Everybody all right?
We're doing well, thank you.
I was lucky enough to work with my first Hollywood person.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
And I can confidently say that the thing that they were doing automatically that's a problem, they are now doing something else automatically that is definitely not the problem and very much good for them. And they're not even having to think about it. And I got, I was offered an excellent testimonial from them, but I asked them to hold off on that and send it after like 3 to 6 months because I want, proof that it's a lasting change, and it feels really good. So that was a nice little success that I had over the last couple of weeks since I saw you guys last time. And yeah, feeling pretty good, feeling
Congratulations.
pretty confident, and loving life.
Super cool. Super cool. That's why I like starting off the night with these things. Anybody else before we deep dive into this week's hopefully interesting stuff? But I can tell you it's going to be interesting because I just experienced it like how many hours ago, and I didn't have a chance to put down any form or fashion. So I'm literally going to be looking at my notes and going, oh yeah, oh yeah. So topics of the night are my takeaways from the ProjectU conference that I attended today. And if there's still some time, I'm going to talk about Four Kings. So ProjectU, if you guys get a chance, you can look up ProjectU Burleson TX, I believe, .com. Should be on. What is it doing my stuff? See how organized.
I'll put it in.
ProjectUBurleson.com. And this is only their 5th year of doing this. But with all these, I've attended many of these styles of conferences. These guys do an excellent job. I got to hand it to Joni and Alex and oh come on, Joni. It's been one of those days. Joni, Alex, and Drew. Joni, Alex, and Drew. They work all year on this on top of their regular job in the economic development portion of Burleson. And they have a bunch of different speakers. And so that's who I'm going to be sharing stuff with you guys. The first speaker that came up, her name is Amanda Box. Lee. There it is, Lee Catherine Bonner, who was a beekeeper, a fourth generation beekeeper. And as a 4th generation beekeeper, she talked about all of the things that we are learning from bees and from nature itself, and how it can be applied to everyday communications, how it can be applied to all the things from nature that are being applied to building. I'm sorry. Did I mention it's been a long day? They call it biomimicry lessons. And one of it is Masters of Courageous Communications. And when they started studying the bees, they realized the amount of communication they have in the hive and their ability to do the work that they do. If the hive, if it gets too big, they will send out bees to find the new location, and they will travel 3 to 6 miles sometimes, going around, and they will do it on they figured out they do it in reference to the sun. so they can remember how to get back. When they get back, they do a dance to get everybody's attention. And sometimes it can take 3 to 6 hours. And I hope I got this right. If not, if you're out there, if you're a beekeeper and you know this better than me, I just learned this a couple hours ago. But they'll do this dance to communicate that they found a new location for a new hive. Well, when some of the other scouts come back, they're doing their own dance as well. And that's why the dance can last a while, because they're communicating and they don't fight over it. They're actually, this is what I saw, and it would be so wonderful if we could actually understand the words they are saying. But eventually they find that the other scouts will agree or be convinced, and they will start to do the same dance as the one that they agree with. And when the majority of the scouts agree, then they will go out again to this location that the one scout that said everything was the coolest. And when they return, they inform the queen, we've checked it out, we all agree, so we're going to take half the hive and start a new location. And that's where you'll see, I actually had it happen on the back porch of one of the places I lived in San Diego. Like, no bees, no bees, no bees. All of a sudden, one day I came out and one of my speakers on the back side, on the back porch of the house, completely engulfed in bees. And of course, after watching enough horror movies involving bees and news media letting us know that there were killer bees, Africanized, and we're all going to die and all this stuff, my roommates were freaking out. They just knew that now the house was uninhabitable and we were all going to die. And one of the funniest things that I did, I turned on, I posted a picture of it on Facebook and got a bunch of feedback. And I was friends with some of the DJs at the rock station in San Diego, 101.5 KGB. And Clint August commented that, well, that's cool. And I turned on their station and cranked it up thinking that maybe the noise would get them to maybe go somewhere else without having to be destructive. No, it apparently calmed them down even more. So apparently some bees really enjoy classic rock cranked up. Who knew? On to other stuff. The bees will reflect the attitude of the queen. And if you've got a beehive that is a little testy or mildly aggressive, they can go in and swap the queen to a queen that's a little more mild-tempered. But what they found out is the bee or the queen has to wait until the hive cycles through, because bees have a very short lifespan, except for the queen. And once all of the bees in the hive have cycled through, the whole hive reflects the attitude of the queen. And they said it's kind of like in the workplace, if you've got a bad manager, and you finally replace the manager, sometimes it can take until all of the employees that had to work under that manager get phased out or get the idea before the workplace environment can assimilate to the new leader. Here's a cool quote. Vulnerability builds trust. Trust builds relationships. Relationships build businesses, and businesses build communities. But it starts with the vulnerability and the transparency to build the trust first. I thought that was a great point. Leadership is a choice, it's not an appointment. The bee is honored because she labors for others because they've got such a short lifespan. The stuff that they build, the work that they do, they never see it completed. She also pointed out that as in a beehive, I think it was almost as much as 98% of all the bees are females. And once the males have done their work for the queen, they're kind of like, okay, peace out. You basically don't offer much here. You're just, you're eating and taking up space. So, catch ya. By the way, Renee, I don't know if this is the first time you've been on Triple T, but this isn't my normal. Normally I've got 3 topics, and I'm sure Mom is out there going, yes, this is a little different. Trust is the most important enabler of high-performing teams because it cultivates the capacity to build trust and inspire behavior. And she had a metaphor for how to work with teams. You build wide boulevards and high curbs, trusting your team but keeping them in line, and trust is earned and built. And if they get out of line, then the boulevard has to slim down and the curbs get even higher, which is a direct reflection to what I learned from the book, The Speed of Trust by Stephen R. Covey. When trust is high, business moves rapidly. When trust is low, business moves very slow. And one of the examples they had was before 9/11, getting on an airplane was super easy. You show up and on you go. After 9/11, you better get here 3 hours early because we're going to want you to almost do a field strip. And now you got, because some dude watched too much Roadrunner and Acme tried to make an Acme bomb in a shoe. Now we got to take everybody's got to take their shoe off because of this one challenged person. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's so many other words I would like to use, but we're going to try and keep this family friendly. And that's what slowed it down. The other example they gave was when trust is high, business goes much quicker. Had his name the very rich guy that is always drinking a can of Coke. Yeah, older dude.
Owns Berkshire Hathaway.
Yes, exactly, that one. Anyhow, he made a multi-million-dollar purchase of a business, showed up, walked in, chit-chatted for a couple minutes, shook hands, and left. Deal
Warren
done.
Buffett.
Thank you, Warren Buffett. Now, if you or I had to try and do a multi-million-dollar buy of a business, it would not be quite as quick as that. Again, speed of trust. Da-dum. Moving on to the next speaker, Amanda Box. I had a chance to chat with her, and her contact, amandabox.org. Great speaker. And she started out with, do you want to help people? Your sincerity is your top card and can't be faked, but it can be taught. Body language is key. And one of the things she pointed out was, when you're looking at body language, even if you think you're being neutral in your body language, you're not. You're either positive or negative, because even the silent treatment is basically neutral in facial and orientation. But is it ever conceived as neutral? No, because of overthinking or past experiences or all that other yeah. And so when you're doing this, she pointed out that you have to have the newscaster or news reporter face. And what she meant by that was, you know how sometimes they don't know if the camera is coming on or not? And so if you're just sitting there, oh, we're live? People will pick up on that it is a faked response. Another one that ran through my mind while she was talking about that, I think we all know what RBF is. Because we're keeping it family friendly, we're just going to call it resting bad face. And I had to point this out to a couple of my restaurant places that I'm trying to get to take my training, that especially this one restaurant that I've been working on to do my training at, resting beehive face. That's awesome. Yes. I noticed that the vast majority of the waitresses there, and I would say wait staff, but they're all female, have this very cute, can I help you? I'm so glad you're my table. And as soon as they walk away from the table, right to RBF. Won't look at any other table. They have their tables, and their tables get the I'm glad you're here smile. I'm like, your tables are watching you. If you can't hold a happy smile at work when your tips require happy smile, you may want to reconsider what you're bringing to work. If your RBF is because of something happened at home, it has to stay at home. And in an environment like that, I got the chance to talk with one of the brand new waitresses recently, and I told her, I said, please take my training because you are brand new. She'd worked in a couple other industries before and has never waited before. I said, before you get bad habits built in, please take my training. And I told her one of the things, who are your customers here? And she goes, well, I've got that table over there. I said, but who are your customers here? And she looked at me a little puzzled, and I said, every person that walks in the door, because we are watching. And if you are the only one that doesn't go from fake smile to RBF, we're going to want to sit at your table because you're not fake, as far as we know. So that's, if you know anybody out there in the hospitality industry, tell them that I would love to teach a class for them. Yes, management too. Oh, yeah. Went into one restaurant about a month ago, and I would have given them about 1.5 stars. Food was terrible. Wait staff, terrible. Watching what was going on there, actually 1 star. And so a couple of days later, I came back and asked for the manager, who I know. And manager was out, but the assistant manager was there. And I got a chance to talk to them about the experience. And they said, oh yeah, I was there that night. Yeah, that happens. And in my mind, I'm screaming. I'm like, you were there. You were there. You were there. And that show happened with you on the floor? Are you kidding me? And unfortunately for them, they lost a customer or more. Had that been the very first time we'd ever been there, not only would they have lost a customer, that word would have gotten out as far as we could get it, just to save other people, which is how frail and fragile sometimes business can be. And a lot of times management doesn't really get it, especially if they've had a good streak of business, especially in something as finicky as hospitality. And how does it tie into what we normally talk about here? Again, it's mindset, and it's understanding your environment and having the empathy to understand what it is that your customers want and why they might want it. What else? Now, this totally caught me off guard. Her company is actually teaching classes on how to do things like shake hands, how to interact at social activities, how to do interviews. And I was watching around, and there were so many people, and a lot of them are business owners and management, and they're like, for real? And because of the stuff that I teach and the things that we deal with here, I'm like, yeah, after the scamdemic, those skills took a hard hit. I don't know how many people I've shaken hands with that are in the younger generations that give me the dead fish. Y'all know what I'm talking about. That, hi, nice to meet you. And if my eyes were closed, I wouldn't know if it was a real person or not. It had that much energy in it. Anybody else experience that? Yes.
It's funny when you look at handshakes and different things. There was a study way back in the day called skinetics, and the way you hold people's hands and you could do different things, and it opens up warmness. It signals to their subconscious. And then after the scamdemic, I use a lot of people who don't want to touch. I do the porn star handshake.
Yeah, we talked about
let's
fist
touch
bump,
your elbows.
the chicken wing,
Yeah.
the tap the toes.
Because I don't know where your hands have been,
Yes.
you know. So
Now here's another thing that it's interesting how much commonality there is in these types of teachings. One of the things she brought up was solve issues before your customer knows there's an issue. And I teach this as a phrase called left of bang. It's a military term, I believe. And where it comes from is if you have to defuse a bomb and the bomb timer is set off to go at 12 o'clock noon, when do you want to show up to defuse the bomb? When the minute hand is left of bang. And I've taught this to a number of people as defuse the bomb, left of bang, learning the skill set of anticipating what arguments or pushbacks can happen and addressing them before they're able to be brought up. In fact, I got to talk to a young engineer at the conference at one of our breaks. And I said, what's one of the biggest challenges you have? And he goes, well, I'm young and I've only been doing this for 3 years. And I go to the job site and I'm an engineer and I design these buildings and stuff like that. And of course, the contractors are looking at me like, you're going to tell me what to do? You're going to tell me how to build? And I said, then you address it left of bang. And you walk in and you go, hi, pleasure to meet you. Just before we get started, I want to let you know, yeah, I look young. I've actually been doing this for 3 years, graduated from this school, but I've been passionate about it since I was a little kid. And so I've basically been studying it since I was a kid, and I would like to hear your advice. And I hope that what you find is a reflection of all of the passion that I put into learning how to do this. He goes, oh, I said, yeah, because they're thinking that you're just some kid who was good at interviews and you've only had 3 years of experience. No, I graduated engineering, studied it, and the reason I got into it is because I've always been interested. So left a bang. And time is flying. There's so many things I want to share, but I'm not going to be able to fill it up. Danny Goldberg. Became a millionaire at a young age, and because he got into boxing and didn't like the gloves that they were using, so he designed his own and manufactured them, and they were a major hit. And he learned a lot of things about business at a very young age. But one of the things that he pointed out is it's inevitable. People are going to change. You have to keep contact with those around you, with those in your business, those that you're doing business with, because people want to be seen, heard, and supported. And one question that he asked that I thought was great: what would create your best day of your career? What would happen? What would have to happen to create your best day of your career? Yeah, it's something to think about. And people need to feel safe. Safe to speak up, safe to voice opinions, safe to offer criticism if it's warranted in the correct way. One of the things he talked about was he was talking about a Zoom meeting like this, and the camera angle for the CEO, the president or the owner of the business, was horrible. It was down there, and so the president's talking like this, and female, and the lighting was all up lighting, looked horrendous, and the CEO said, "How's my camera look?" And everybody on the call said, "Oh, it looks great. Wonderful." Nobody felt the safety to be able to say, "Not good." And he was invited on the call, being introduced to be a consultant, a trainer. He was going to do a training for the class. And so he pointed that out in his training. And of course, a bunch of the people were like, "Oh, we got called out." And of course, the CEO said, "I saw myself on the screen. I knew it looked horrible. And when nobody was willing to tell me, it validated we had a problem."
EBT.
Huh?
ABT.
ABT, always be testing, always be testing. But we need people like that around us as well. I'm one of those people, I don't have a problem telling people. I'll tell people out in public if their zipper's down, if their collar's not right, if something's up. And I'm not one of the stupid ones that will be like, hey, your zipper's down. I've even had in the checkout line at the grocery store a lady whose zipper was down. And I'll be kind enough to go, by the way, I'm going to tell you something, and please don't react. And no, it's going to be okay. When you get a chance, please don't look down right now, but when you get a chance, your zipper is down and you can discreetly take care of it at your will. Do you see those people over there? And she looked at me and I said, yeah, those people. And she turned around so her back was against the line and quick zipped up her zipper. And turned back and she was beat red. And I said, it happens to everybody. I'm just kind enough to let you know. And off I go.
Well, TJ, she might have been shopping.
Yeah, right? Only got a few more minutes, and man, this is going by much quicker than I anticipated. Greg Offner. GregoryOffner.com. And he was pretty awesome. He started off his career as as a dueling piano player, and he came up with his idea of tip jar culture. And he also pointed out something that I used to be against until this conference, that in this day and age, you need QR codes on everything, everywhere. If you're doing a talk, you need to have a QR code in your PowerPoint. But he also has a book out that y'all might want to check out, the tip jar culture, how to re-engage and reignite your workforce. And he had some really good points that I don't know. One of them is have your spiel and practice it, which is something I got to work on. When people ask me what I do, literally, because I don't know which one to pick. And I used to just tell them that I'm a professional problem solver, but that's too vague in this area for me to get any work. But he said in work and stuff like that, there are 3 types of audiences. There are keepers, there are leapers, and there are sleepers. Keepers, leapers, and sleepers. And the keepers are the rock stars. They love who they work for. They're rock solid. They'll be there. They're the kind of employees that you wish you had 100% of. The next one are the leapers. They do a great job for a purpose, but they also do it a great job so that they can advance their career and move up the ladder. and you want to hang on to them in the worst way. But in doing so, you may create more of a problem and start building resentment, or when they finally bounce, the next place they go, people will say, well, what was it like where you used to work? And if they had a bad experience, they're now telling the leapers there who are thinking about another job how bad your place was because things just didn't work out. Well, now you've robbed yourself of getting the leapers from the other place. And the sleepers, you have to ask them in the kind way, why are you here? And how can I help you with that? Because sometimes the sleepers will stay there if you know and understand what it is they're looking for and how you can keep them motivated. They may not be the rock stars, but they will be there. And sometimes that's worth working with them as well. Clubhouses. Oh, if you need practice, go on Clubhouse and volunteer to go on stage. Yes. Now, you guys will be familiar with this. He goes, one of the ways to build a relationship with them. What are you passionate about? What do you do when you're not here anymore? What's that sound like? Magic question number 3 out of 3 magic questions. And what do you want to be the cause of? And the way he said what that meant to him was he's got a very young daughter who at one point set a piece of sidewalk chalk on a table. It rolled off. He went over, picked it up, handed it to her, and she, oh yes, nope, you're right, Elijah. Number 2, magic question number 2. Told you it's been a long day. Passion. Holly, there you go. Ooh, we're almost to hour number 2. But what do you want to be the cause of? He found that when he handed the chalk back to his little daughter, she put the chalk back on the table to watch it roll off. Dad picked it up, handed it back to her. This time she looked him straight in the eyes, set it on the table with a big grin on her face. Because she knew that she was the cause of something that she wanted to get done. And it made both her and her dad smile. So what do you want to be the cause of? What can you create? What can you do to make yourself and others happy? And a great quote that he put on there was, work is as much a search for daily meaning as it is for daily bread. Work is as much a search for daily meaning as it is for daily bread. Studs Terkel was the name of the guy that did that. And shoot, I got one left and we're out of time. I didn't even get to 4 Kings. The last one I'll let you guys research on your own. John Aov, great, funny guy. Doesn't have his info on there. I can possibly get that. His was talking about overthinking and soundtracks that run in our head, which are overthinking. And if a soundtrack runs long enough, it can stop us from doing all sorts of stuff. I'm going to share this with you as quickly as I can because it's really cool. He pointed out that overthinking is the biggest killer of a goal. Overthinking is a form of fear. Overthinking is what you think gets in the way of what you want. Overthinking is when what you think gets in the way of what you want. And they did a survey. He said they did an extensive survey on purpose. They surveyed 10,000 people asking, are you an overthinker? What percentage of the 10,000 people do you think identified as overthinkers? Somebody throw out a number quick.
Over half.
Who else has a guess? Elijah says 90 plus.
90 plus.
100.
99.5% of 10,000 surveyed considered themselves overthinkers. And he said it's just a soundtrack, but it's in your voice. And one of the things that he pointed out, he had so much stuff that I use with my clients. And one of them was his daughter had failed I think it was a violin test, something like that. Well, now another one was coming up, and he could tell she was stressed about it. And he goes, let me guess, your mind is saying, hey, you failed that last one. By the way, you failed that last test. You know that last test that we took, just like the one that's coming up tomorrow? Yeah, we failed that one. And she said, yeah. And he said, what if one of your friends kept texting that to you? Would they still be your friend? At what point would you tell them to shut up? Hey, you know that test you're taking tomorrow, you failed the last time. Elijah.
What's amazing to me, in my experience, and even in the example you just gave. Sorry, excuse me.
What's that?
Even in the example you just gave, and in my experience, the vast majority of people think they are thinking when really they are remembering, and there is a difference between thinking and remembering.
Yes.
And when you are remembering, you are not thinking.
Yes.
And if you can get out of the habit of overly remembering, specifically overly remembering things which have a strong emotional component to them, then your mind will be free to do some actual thinking.
Yes. One question he had that was very prophetic. What's the hardest part of your 11th diet? The first 10. Because that voice lets you know, why should this one work? Look at your track record. All the above. And so he replaced it with something very familiar to what I ask my clients. What would you like instead? And you said you also want to ask the loudest voices 3 questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? The comments that are running through, are they true? Are they helpful? Are they kind? And if they're not, you can ask yourself, I wonder if that could work here. I wonder if that could work this time. And understanding thoughts come by choice or by chance. Actionable questions. Where do I want to win this week? And you have a soundtrack for every person in your life. Said, you don't believe me? Think about any person you know. And if they were going to give you advice on something that you want to try, what would that soundtrack sound like? And would that soundtrack be true, helpful, and kind? Empathy, I thought was cool. He gave a definition for empathy. When you care about what the people you care about care about. I'll say it again. Empathy is when you care about what the people you care about care about. And understanding that crisis magnifies kindness. And the way he meant that was, if somebody has gone through major crisis and you do something for them, their view of the kindness of the act of what you've done is amplified big time. And we're just going to leave it at that. I'm 8 minutes over. Thank you for letting me share my big download of today's conference. You got the whole conference in 60 minutes, or actually 40 minutes. So any ahas, epiphanies, takeaways, questions before we move into the second hour? Okay, well, thank you so much for that. Now, if you're watching the recording or out live, this is where I switch over to second hour, where it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can ask questions, bring up topics, and everybody on the call gets to answer first. So who's got a question or topic for the second hour? Start it off. For real. And if you're watching this recording, this happens over 90% of the weeks. I see a potential question coming up. Yes, please. Elijah.
So not really a question, but just a little bit more about the whole overthinking thing.
Yes, we can
And
continue with that.
one way you could stop it, if you find that the voice or voices inside won't stop, then you can practice peripheral vision, which is an exercise where you pick a spot somewhere in front of you, and even though you look straight at that spot, you start to notice what is happening to the sides without moving your head or your neck or your eyes, and you get a sense of like, oh, how far the wall is maybe on that side, and how far the window is maybe on the other side, and just kind of expand your awareness outwards. And basically when you do that, the voices will go away and it will be silent inside your mind, because as you put more and more of your attention outside to what's happening outside of you, basically you can't be internal and external at the same time. So by putting all your attention on purpose external, it takes away any bandwidth for the internal dialogue to continue. So that's a little tip there for anybody who wants to have some help stopping themselves overthinking.
Yes, and it works for that. It's also great for sports. I've taught that to a number of my clients who are into sports. Ironically, football and golfers gave me the best feedback on that. And the golfers were the ones who were like, I was so used to being told that I've got to focus on the ball. But when I did, I heard all these voices. And as soon as I expanded everything around me, everything got quiet and I could still see the ball because that's all I was looking at there. But it also allowed me to see where the hole is without taking my eyes off the ball. So it's very interesting practice. I'm glad you brought that up. Anybody else got any input, ahas, epiphanies, comments on that? Come out of trance.
No, thank you.
Well, then I guess we need another topic or a question. Nobody's got a question for tonight? Holly.
Okay. So this is kind of a comment, kind of a question, kind of tied to what was talking before. It just keeps coming up in my mind over and over again as you were talking. So I don't know how many, I may have shared this before. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Give and Take by Adam Grant.
Hold on, Holly. Your mic dropped out.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
That was weird. I wonder why it dropped out. Okay. So as we've been talking, there's two books that keep coming up. Well, I don't remember the name of the other book, but I know the author. So Give and Take by Adam Grant. I don't know how many of you have read that book. And then just kind of Brene Brown, daring greatly and talking about specifically her phrase of proactive vulnerability. So anyway, so how many, just out of curiosity, how many of you have read Give and Take or at least familiar with it or no? Really? Okay. So maybe I haven't talked about this before. So they did a lot of science.
Hold on again, Holly. Your mic sounds like you're talking inside of an empty pop can.
So weird.
Yeah. It got very penny and very flat.
Does that help at all?
We'll find
Can you
out
hear me now?
in a few more words.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with my mic. That's so weird.
Yeah,
I may have to
earlier
change
tonight, your mic was very, very strong.
And now it's not doing anything at all. Okay. Well, let me know if it goes out again.
There.
Okay.
Now it's clear.
Oh, weird. I wonder what was going on. So they did science about, they divided people into 3 different groups, and they had ways to measure it, of givers, takers, and matchers. And they discovered that in the population, roughly 60% of the population are matchers, roughly 20% are givers, and roughly 20% are takers. And you could probably tell from the name what that means. So takers, just in interactions with other human beings, they just take everything they can get. Givers give whether they expect to get something back or not. And matchers are kind of in a, and by the way, the matchers are not petty. This may make them sound petty, but we'll get into why they're not later. They keep the scorecard. So if they do something for you and you do something for them, you're good. But if they give and give and you take, that's not going to make them happy. And if you give to them, they've got to make sure they give back to you. So it's kind of like they've got the balance sheet and they want to make sure all interactions are balanced. So they did this science. They looked at people who were in med school and who had the highest grades, who had the lowest grades, who had the medium grades. They looked at salespeople in certain industries who had the highest sales, because these were numbers that you could actually look at solid numbers and see what was going on. So just out of curiosity, and a little bit of a spoiler alert, but so first of all, who do you think was in the lowest category? The people who had the fewest sales, the lowest grades. They were consistently from the same category. What category would you say they were from? Any guesses?
Who's got an answer?
Engineers?
Between givers, takers, and matchers.
I would say givers.
Look at Trump.
That is correct. The givers were in the bottom category. So the people who were the top salespeople, the top grades, were also all from the same category. Any guesses what category that was from?
The matches.
The takers, maybe?
The correct answer is the givers.
Oh,
They're at both the
interesting.
top and the bottom. And a lot of people think it's the takers, but what happens with takers, they notice, is they rise real fast and they fall real fast. And quite frankly, one of the reasons is because of the matchers. So what happens is the matchers see the givers and they want to put those people to the top because they've got to give back. And they see the takers and the matchers basically want to take them out. So the matchers don't just match for their own good. They match for everybody's good. They do not like it when they see somebody taking advantage of somebody else, even if it's not them. So anyway, one of the things that they said is a difference. So my question is, one of the things that they said is a difference between the two is time. So that one's actually measured. So two things that they found. So one of them is that it's time. So your first year in medical school, the givers might be towards the bottom, but as you get towards the end, they go towards the top because people need a chance to get to know them and fill them out and know that they're givers. So that's one aspect that has been measured that they're pretty sure is true. Also, an interesting point, they said when you're looking at your staff, you may think the most important thing is to get the givers on your staff. Actually, the most important thing is to keep the takers off your staff. Obviously, both are good. But you get a taker in there, and all the matchers are going to start taking because it makes a toxic environment. This kind of, we're talking about the bees and the getting the right queen in there. But if you have no takers in there and even just one giver, all of the matchers will turn into givers as well. It will turn into an environment where everybody gives because that's just all it takes is one person giving a little extra and everybody else wants to balance the scales and then they start giving to each other and then they want to balance the scales. So I thought that was interesting. But one of the things I'm trying to figure out is besides time, because after time, there are still some givers that are at the bottom. So I have my personal suspicions, but they're just guesses because they're not measurements. What do you all think divides the givers who are at the top from the givers who are at the bottom? Burnout, I definitely, Mike put that in the chat. I would definitely say burnout's probably on the list. I would agree with that. Anybody else want to answer that?
That was my guess. Mark?
Some gifts don't think they deserve more. They kind of get stuck in a rut like that. Being in sales myself, I watch. They're like, oh, I didn't, and they'll be their own worst enemy when it comes to that, and they'll still give. So,
Mark?
Yeah, I did my master's on burnout in the institution where I was working, and I know there are a couple of elements. I don't have a good answer for you, Holly, but it's usually the burnout, probably of the givers, happens when there's role confusion, role overload, and so the givers, by their nature, that's all they kind of know how to do, and maybe that can lead to burnout. So that's why you get that disparity between the top and the bottom. Whereas maybe there are some givers that know, there's a certain amount they can give. They want to do extra, but there's I don't know, some kind of a natural inclination to, a break or something that so they don't burn out. So, but like I say, I saw a lot of it with people working with people with disabilities that were just burnt out, and yeah, like I said, it could be that. Like I said, what TJ had said earlier, one of the the soundtrack is playing ad nauseum, and they just go, they just burn out because they're just, what Michael said about, again, they've given, everything, and, nothing changes or something. So that's my two centavos.
And Renee put in the chat, is it introverted versus extroverted?
These are all great comments. I'll read Michael's too. It says, also, you can only give so much before you need to refill. I'd forgotten this story, but one of the stories he tells is also, he is talking about someone who's burning out. It was a teacher who was teaching in an underprivileged school, so that's why she was giving. But the interesting thing is she was experiencing burnout, and the way she got out of burnout, this is something similar to what kind of Mark said, she started volunteering more. What she did is she was volunteering, at this underprivileged school that was burning her out. But then she also spent a couple hours going at another nearby school that was a tutoring program specifically for gifted underprivileged kids. And they said the difference is she was burning out because she wasn't having any impact. She didn't feel like she was having much of an impact, and it was really hard to not have much of an impact. She probably did, but it's long-term impact. Whereas when she was working with the gifted kids, because they were all highly motivated, she was seeing immediate impact. And it helped revitalize her and helped get her out of that burnout so that she could even work at the other job and not have as much trouble at it, which I thought was a very interesting story. So I don't know. I mean, definitely some good answers. What contributes to burnout? Is it not having healthy boundaries? Is it definitely probably introverted, extroverted plays a role? Is it being, not being able to give, but not being able to receive, as we were talking about earlier? Is it, people, I don't know what it is. A lot of this is speculation. So, but yeah, good answer so far. I don't know if anybody else wants to contribute.
I think also what Michael said about the deserving thing just kind of made me think, TJ, you talk about the thermostat. Sometimes the thermostat's set too low for people, and they're gonna give, but then once it starts coming back the other way, they get really uncomfortable, and then they kind of back away, that kind of thing. Maybe, I don't know.
And I think when you start adding all of the different portions of these ingredients, I don't think the amplification is even. I think it's one of those strong curves. You add lack of recognition and overload and not feeling safe, not in harm way, but being safe to be able to voice your opinion, stuff like that. And if resentment starts to add into that mix, I think that curve to burnout gets really steep. Yeah, and Mike added, I find when I give so much, it begins to become expected and unappreciated. Yeah, not a gift. Exactly. Michael.
It's kind of like relationships as well. So like, for example, if somebody is just, I'm gonna win somebody over with kindness, you need some takeaways. It's like you can't keep giving. It's I had it in my head a minute ago. I wanted to say it and it kind of slipped out. But it's also the reason why they're giving.
Yeah.
Are they just trying to be, I'm going to win somebody over because I'm going to give them so much love or so much attention or so much stuff. You kind of have to do the cat and mouse thing. So you don't get taken advantage of.
And I think that also adds to the slippery slope of resentment. A couple of weeks ago, one of the topics I had was the resentment cancer, where it doesn't take much resentment tossed into that little pool. And it feeds off of all of those things, especially the inner voice. As soon as the inner voice gets a hold of that little seed of resentment, it blossoms pretty quickly. Anybody else want to add to that? Or yes, Mike, you're correct. There's a lot of inertia and resentment. That's another one. Well, if we don't have any more, does somebody have another topic or question they want to ask? Mark.
Okay, I have a question for the group. And I had my last client tonight was factors in the story factors into it, but why don't we play tic-tac-toe anymore?
Because once you learn how to play it, it's a cat game every time.
It's the game you can't win.
Yeah.
So I related that to an argument that he'd had with his girlfriend this week. And I said, again, you don't win arguments. Someone may feel they scored a point, the other person goes away feeling that not misunderstood or whatever. Arguments are a game like tic-tac-toe that you can't win. So I made that metaphor for him. I said, so why play? When the opportunity comes, again, just to back away, just wanted everybody's input on that, why ever play a game you can't win? And you can't win the argument game.
You can, but even if you do, is it worth it? It's probably not.
Not a game worth winning. Like I said, sometimes the only winning move is not to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a winner, there's just a loser. Holly.
See if my mic works this time. Can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Okay, good. I am so glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about this too, but I had a conversation with someone this week specifically about how when you're in an argument, the logic goes out, of course, too, but how it becomes not about what you're talking about, but about pushing each other's emotional buttons and seeing how much you can make the other person lose their cool. And one of the interesting things that, we might go into it and it's like, I care more, make sure I push more of theirs than they push of mine, or I'm just so strong, I could just stand there all day long and they won't ever get my buttons. And it's like, nobody's immune. We all have buttons. I mean, unless you're that person who's managed to clear everything, which I'm coming to your seminar, please. If you stick around long enough and they keep punching, they may miss, but all it takes is that one hit.
Yep.
And it's not a logical response. You'll be beating yourself up afterwards saying, why did I fly off the handle? Why did I react that way? But it's because all we're doing is we're poking around in each other's, neuroses trying to find something that's going to land. that has nothing to do with reality or logic, which is kind of, so yeah, a very interesting point. You can't win.
Yes. Good points. Anybody else got anything they want to add to that? I think one of the other angles that you want to look at when there's always going to be discussions. Are you going in to win, or are you going in to not lose? Are you going in to understand their point, or to make sure that your point is the right one? Know your outcome. Yes, Lenora. I'm going to assume, I know we shouldn't use that word, assume, but I'm going to assume that I'm not the only one here who has had discussions with people. And sometimes you have to understand that you see the topic and there's no winning. There's just, you're like, yeah, this won't go anywhere. And there are times that even though you know you're right, the other person is so passionately entrenched in their beliefs that the facts don't matter. And then you have to decide how much energy are you willing to expel to not end up changing their mind anyway.
So this is the thing, right? It's the first dart and the second dart.
What's that?
In Buddhism, they talk about the first dart and second dart. And the first dart is something you have no control over. Life is happening, and the tectonic plates are moving and the clouds form, and sometimes it rains, and sometimes there's lightning storms, and sometimes there's natural disasters, and sometimes people pass on, and sometimes accidents happen, and you can't control it. But the second dart is how you respond to any and all of that stuff, and that is something you can control completely, especially if you're calm. And so the idea is to have two philosophies that are completely opposite to each other in your mind at the same time, and hold them both there until a higher order emerges from believing both of them. And the two philosophies are, one, this has everything to do with me. It's my choice, it's my life, it's my decision, how I act, how I respond, it's all me. And at the same time, life is happening and it has nothing to do with me. And so if you can hold in your mind at the same time, if you could just think that at one level it has everything to do with me, and on another level it has absolutely nothing to do with me, and you could sit and meditate on those two things being both true at the same time, eventually a higher understanding will emerge out of that. And then you will be able to proceed understanding that there are something, there's a prayer. I'm not a Christian, but in Christianity there is a prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept those things in life that I cannot control, the courage to fight for those things that I can control, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Right? So, for me, I think that's what it is. And it's interesting how Christianity and Buddhism, Islam, they all, all castles, I've said it before, well, all roads lead to the same castle, But that's kind of what my 2 cents on it.
Great stuff. Who else has something to add to that?
I'm just going to jump in. Mike posted in the chat, when the threshold moves from discussion to trying to make hits, when and how is it appropriate to bow out? I would love to hear the answer to that too.
Who's got an answer for that?
Say that once more. I'm sorry, Holly. I missed the first part of the question, and I think it was about introverts and extroverts.
Oh, that was a ways back. That was when we were talking about.
I didn't know if it was piggybacking. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No, this is a new discussion. But Mike posted in the chat, when the threshold moves from discussion to trying to make hits. So this goes back to Mark starting with the, why don't you play tic-tac-toe? Because you can't win. So Mike said, when the threshold moves from discussion to trying to make hits, when and how is it appropriate to bow out?
This is about when you're in a discussion or an argument and it's starting to get heated and you're noticing that the material or the discussion is moving from facts to whatever to actually taking personal hits on emotions or whatever to just win when the kinesthetic drive is moving you versus when you're in your logic, I think is what we're talking about. Is that correct?
Mark.
Yeah, again, sometimes you have to change, you have to change the direction or, and, again, the squirrel that just hit my head was, let me see if I can frame it correctly. The the more we disagree, the more chance that one of us is right. It's a way to interrupt it, and the other one, oh, Jesus, it ran away. Anyway, but that was the one that I had to, in response. When it starts to become an attack, well, you need to be able to walk away. But, sometimes you can change, the more voices are raised, the less communication occurs. So when it gets to that point where things turn ugly, you need to be able to table it and come back when you're both, call a timeout and come back when both people are willing to talk and be reasonable and not turn into a personal attack.
Exactly. Lenora.
Hi, Mike. For the super empaths in the world, I have had to, what I affectionately refer to as, practice the art of fighting. I am 39. It's taken me a bit of time to get here. And had you met me at 23, oh, heavens above. It's amazing that I still have a standing house because I used to get very angry and I'd slam doors. Know who you're fighting with, and also reflect after your fight. Especially, like, there are certain people. So if I've gotten in one or two disagreements with my husband, I've gotten much, much better. If I'm talking with certain people, as some of you know certain people on the phone call, I'm not even going to mention names. I'm talking to certain people on the phone. You have to do strategies. And when you can focus on wanting to stay calm, that is your intention. I want to stay calm and I want to stay in control of my words. Speak softer, speak slower, and wear only one earbud and put the volume down. You have to get distance, as much distance as you can, because when certain people are coming at you, your nervous system is wanting to really go berserk. And I could have spiraled with the best of them. I've gotten much better to the point that, like, there are certain times where I walk away going, I I should get an award for that. I should get an award for that because it takes so much control. And you can, by all means, go and afterwards scream, do whatever you need to do, because it is an energy that's building and you want to be heard. But if your intention is to talk calmly, to stay clear, to not have the voice of, oh, I wish I didn't say that, or this happened, then that happened. These are strategies that I literally use in a fight. And depending on who it is, I will take notes. As they are talking, I will literally write their words verbatim in my phone. Again, because it gives me more control. And because the more control I can have, I can think clearly. And then afterwards, I can, if it ever comes back, and I definitely take catalog. So nobody get in a fight with me. If it ever comes back, I can go, well, back on this time when this is exactly what you said, and boom. And I can just have it. Because I'm not in the argument to shame, but I have no problem reminding people how they hurt me, and I will drop that boundary that says, you don't get that power anymore. I might be a little elevated, but it has helped me significantly that I don't feel like a stark raving lunatic, which is a great thing. And all of my door frames in the house are intact.
And the other thing to remember is the person who doesn't lose their cool actually wins the argument. It's holding your frame. What have we all been learning? Holding your frame, keeping calm. And the other thing is, another classic way of disarming people is to agree with them and then put in your point, which kind of works because then there is no argument and basically you've won anyway, or let them think they're right in a way that gets you what you want is another thing. And now allowing people to think that they're making the decision and the move and they're winning. And actually, there's a little bit of manipulation behind the scene to get what you want. And I love the concept of being able to accept coexisting contradictions, coexisting contradicting realities. If you can stretch your mind enough to do that, again, really isn't an argument, but it's so much more easy to do in theory than with your family. When you're arguing with family, holding your frame is really hard.
Elijah.
All of the above. All of the above. Amen. Right. My initial answer to what was written, how do you get out of it rather than pushing buttons? The obvious answer is as quickly as possible. Or when I think the question was when and how. So the obvious answer is as quickly as possible. But first of all, I understand that, once you're already upset, then it's much more difficult to retake control of your upsetness and your emotional state and come back to neutral and a calm place, because you are now already upset, and by definition that means that you are paying attention with your eyes and your ears and all the rest of it to things that will keep you upset. You give them a higher priority because the state wants to live on longer. You can almost think of it like a little life form, right? So it comes down to self-awareness, right? It comes down to having, knowing your outcome ahead of time, setting an intention as often as possible, reminding yourself as often as possible, because it's not something that like Lenora said, it takes time and repetition and sometimes years before we learn and grow and get better at responding differently from the way that seems so natural to us. Okay, but you have to have that intention in between these occurrences, like she was saying that, I had a disagreement with somebody, or I had words with somebody in between, like once it's over, you set an intention that, okay, the next time that kind of thing happens with somebody, not necessarily even the same person, but a different person, I'm going to remind myself, and I'm going to ask, and I'm asking myself now, you say it out loud in an empty room where no one can hear you but yourself. My intention is to remind myself the next time I get angry at someone that pay attention to what you're doing right now. And if you say it often enough, in the moment, your mind will remind you, hey, you asked me to do this. And then you can say, okay, hold on, well, what is my intention here? Is my intention to really push this person's buttons? Is my intention to get them to understand and agree? Is my intention to force them to think the same way I do? Probably not. And therein lies your opportunity to do something different. And sometimes that means just walking away.
Yep.
Sometimes it means taking the L. But it's not really an L because you never got mean. They got mean and you didn't, and so you won. Like what Fran was saying. So that's what I mean by all of the above. Everybody said such great things. I wanted to say a couple of things, but they all beat me to it, you know. And remember, you never lose control of your posture. Right? No matter how angry you are, no matter how upset you are, no matter what anybody says to you, you can always put your arms up like this and feel like you're winning within seconds, because this is hardwired. And it doesn't matter if people think you're cuckoo, because you are winning with your hands up. Right? Physiology trumps everything. So that's one other thing. And then I'm done. Thank you.
Great answer. Mark.
Well, lot to unpack there. Great discussion. What Elijah was talking about is, like I said, from my point of view, is SOR. You got, stimulus response, and sometimes that triggers our rage, but you have to put the organism in the middle. So it's stimulus organism response. And to get, you got to stay in your cognitive mind, because your cognitive mind doesn't have any constructs for emotions. And going back to what Holly said about emotional buttons, people only know our emotional hot buttons if we've let down, our barriers around them and let them in. And, and that's, and people know, especially people that are close to us know, where our hot buttons are and how to jump on them, because we've been vulnerable enough to reveal them. But what Holly said earlier about, again, there's a lot of practitioners that, that can help people, unwire those buttons so that they can't ever be mashed in the future, and I'm not good enough to know exactly how to do that, but I understand the concept of taking away the wiring so that that emotional hot button can't ever work on someone again.
Two things I wanted to add quick. One, know your opponent. If you see the argument coming, if you know your opponent, you can understand how they fight. We all know, we've all dealt with the people that fight dirty. And that'll help you decide, do I want to get in the ring with this person or not? The other part goes back to my martial arts training, is learn how to spar your way. And there's lots of different ways to go about it. You've heard lots of them here. The world isn't perfect. And it's not always kind, and it's not always sweet, and it's not always nice. And if your best defense is peace out and walk, get good at it. I'm lucky with my vocabulary skills and the fact that I'm 6'4". If people try and get in my face, sometimes I will close the proximity and be quiet and just stand above them and let them say what they think they need to say.
And we can all do that energetically if we've set our minds to it.
Yes.
You can turn a short person into an energetically very large person. You can test that if you walk, if you're short and you're walking down the street with other people who are taller than you, and somebody else is coming in the opposite direction. If you're short, they're going to aim for you unless you make your energy big, in which case they'll aim for somebody else. Works every time. It's fun to play.
And you see it in nature quite a bit. You see the cat that doesn't realize that the bear could kill it like that. The cat's like, "You're in my place. You get out. You're there." And the bear's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, up." But again, it comes back to, is it worth the energy output for what you're going to get on the backside? There have been a number of times I've had to deal with people, and you look at them and you know that they've only got 3 brain cells to scratch together to try and come up with the argument in the first place, and they are going to stand by that argument, and arguing with them only brings you down to their level. And you're like, "All right, you win. 2 + 2 is 5. I was wrong. Whatever. Enjoy. Have a great day." My ego will recover a lot quicker than my body will. Luckily, I was lucky enough to learn that by watching a buddy of mine who had an ego that just couldn't be controlled, and his body took a lot of lessons the hard way, because his ego wrote a check, while his mouth wrote a check that his body couldn't cash. Mark.
Personal story, then I'll shut up. I've been married 41 years. I've had probably 5 knockdown, drag out Donnybrooks with my missus, and before I knew anything, she would legitimately go off because we were not helping her out around the house, and she was overwhelmed, and she'd start yelling and screaming, and I didn't know where this came from, but I would just sit there and smile at her, and you can smile at the person who's just like going off, and and she'd go off, and then eventually she'd notice, she'd be like, "What the hell are you smiling about?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just love you when you're passionate." And she goes, "Ah," and she'd walk out of the room.
My brother tells me when his wife grumbles at him that he always knows that when she's angry enough to yell at him, he knows that she loves him very much, or she wouldn't be bothered. So that gives you another perspective on being yelled at too.
Yeah, it's like there's an expression that you lunging horses. Sometimes horses that they don't want to be ridden or they want to run free, they have all this energy and they buck and they kick and they don't let anybody approach them. And what they do is they just let the horse run free. And at some point it'll run out of energy and get all that nervousness out of itself, and it'll come back, and then you can mount the horse or ride the horse or tame the horse or whatever it is you want to do afterwards. And I have been known to lunge clients, They come in, they want to talk about their problem, and they want to talk about everything that's wrong, and I just let them go. And I just keep that 1 degree of separateness to know that, okay, I'm going to let you talk, but I'm going to give you a certain minimum amount, well, not minimum, but, a certain appropriate amount of empathy and understanding, but I am not going to come in there and start agreeing with everything you say, because then all I'm going to end up doing is reinforcing your problem. So I might give a little, oh, that must have been hard, but then I'll just let them go and let them go and let them go, let them go. And at some point they run out of steam. And once they do, or if they keep going and I'm not expecting that they had even more energy than I thought, at some point I was like, this is your time. You've paid for it.
Yep.
You can do it any which way. We can do this any which way you want. You're the boss here. You can come in here and just talk for the whole hour, 2 hours, however long you got booked. Or, let's talk about 1 or 2, 3 maybe maximum bullet points of things that you really want to work through now, today. And let's start working through that. And, I have no problem interrupting them, and I have no problem letting them go for a little bit before I do. It's okay.
And that's so much in line with a landmark program that I did years and years ago, where people came along with their sad stories or their traumas, and the exercise was to write it out and in all its drama and all its tragedy, and then read it to another person over and over until you started laughing. It somehow suddenly became funny on maybe the fifth reading of this tragedy, and you just couldn't connect with it in the same way. So it was effective if you, and you couldn't buy into it anymore. Like sometimes when a client, you give them space to talk, they're really buying into their tragedy, but that process kind of...
They're trying to get you to buy into their tragedy.
Sorry?
They're trying to get you to buy into their tragedy.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And I will not buy into someone's tragedy because I have some fundamental beliefs. The first one TJ said earlier, that all we are is changing. Second to second, moment to moment. You cannot be and remain the same. In fact, if you think you are the same person you were 5 minutes ago, then you are an incredible hypnotic subject, because the amount of delusional thoughts you'd have to have in your mind to think that you're the same when you haven't changed. Because just even understanding my words and hearing what I'm saying, whether you're agreeing, disagreeing, whatever, doesn't matter. You're now different than you were before I started speaking. Right? And so to think you're still the same and that the problem can somehow persist through time is completely illogical.
Absolutely.
Anyway, if you let me start, I'll go all night. So
And that's why the time date protocol works so well. I'll finish with a quick story. I was at a business and I was talking to the business owner, and they were asking what I do, and I told them a few things, but I said I also do some face reading, and pointed out some good stuff like we normally do, but then I saw fear in their chin, and I said, "What are you afraid of?" They're like, "What?" So what are you afraid of? There's fear in your chin. Ab reaction, just like that. Eyes welled up, and I said, "Good." They're like, "Whoa." I went, no, it's okay. Look at your computer and tell me the exact date and time, including the year. I said, I'm going to ask you this twice. So what's the exact date and time? And they told me, and I said, yes. Like today, it's February 18th, 2025, 8:01 p.m. where I'm at. And if you look at your time and date right now, you can read it out in your head or out loud. I said, but the fact that we can have this conversation right now, that you can hear my voice, means you have survived 100% of everything life has ever thrown at you. There is not one single thing from your past that you are not stronger than, because you have survived all of it. And I want you to let that sink in. And when I do this, I usually I say it a few other things so that I make sure that 1 minute goes by. And as soon as I see the time change, I'll go, so I'll ask you again, what is the exact date and time with the year? And they'll go, it's February 18th, 2025, 8:02 p.m. I said, yes, it's 8:02 p.m. And you're not the same person you were the first time I asked you that question. And the fact that we can have this conversation, you can hear my voice, means that you have survived. And they looked at me after a bit and they said, I feel like I just lost 400 pounds. I said, you did. You were carrying around all of that because there was a part of you that didn't realize that you'd survived whatever you've been through. They were stuck back then. And you can do the same thing after an argument or a fight. You can walk over and look at your watch or whatever and go, it's 8:03. I'm still here. I still have thoughts. I survived it. I'm stronger than whatever they said back there. Now I can decide what I'm going to do at 8:04. Unfortunately, for this platform at 8:04, I need to be saying goodbye because I promised you guys that I would respect your time. And one thing I love, and you guys know it, and just like Elijah, man, we could be on here for 2 days. Once we get on to these subjects, we can talk and teach, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. That's why we've made it 164 episodes, not because of me, because you guys give me the platform to make it relevant. So thank you so much for offering up your precious commodity of time here on this platform. I appreciate every one of you. For those of you that are watching live on YouTube, love you, Mom. And for those of you watching the recording, thank you for sticking around to the end. Again, please go to my YouTube channel, do all the YouTube stuff, click the subscribe, click the like button, leave some comments, and then comment on your comments and comment on other people's comments, because I like reading the comments, so I ain't gonna lie. Other than that, 8:04, please go out, have an amazing week. Live life to the fullest. If you need anything, please reach out. I would love to help you in any way possible. Love you all. Bye.
Great job, TJ. Great job, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you guys.